This podcast is brought to you by Sideline Productions, who provide national, regional, and local events with large modular LED displays, as well as live production services. Visit them at sideline-productions.com. And by Skipping Stone Studios, storytellers from Brookings, South Dakota, providing businesses, organizations, and nonprofits with video, post-production, and photography. Bring your story to life and visit them at skippingstonestudios.com. Well, hey everybody. It's great to be back in Brookings, South Dakota for a change. After a long month on the road, I get to stay home and enjoy the weather finally warming up. And with that, let's get the show started. This week we had Tom Henderson come up and talk to us about his new program, Restoration Generation. Tom has some great insights he shared with us about where he started and where ResGen is going. As always, he follows up his talk with questions from the audience.
All right, appreciate it. Well, it's good to be with you this morning, and as Scott mentioned, my name's Tom Henderson. If we were in a school assembly right now, I'd have you all say, "What's up, Tom?" But I won't do that right now, since we're all professionals here. But as he mentioned, we have an organization called Restoration Generation. Let me start by saying ResGen, as we like to call it, is really about one thing, and that's relationships. My wife Laura and I, we started Restoration Generation almost 5 years ago now, April 1st, 2010, in the height of the recession, because we thought, well, it's a recession, so let's start a nonprofit. That seems like a pretty good idea. Let's go and ask people to donate some of the money that they're concerned about right now to helping grow what we're supposed to do. But really what we started it for was because we've been working with middle school and high school students specifically in several different capacities for over 15 years full time. And in all those different capacities, we recognize one truth, that the majority of our students today, large in part because of the high percentage of divorce and the amount of brokenness that's in our world, the majority of them know nothing but broken relationships with their family, with their extended family, with their friends, with their community, and as weird as it may sound, with themselves. And this is the truth, that these broken relationships are greatly impacting this generation of students. They're walking around every day filled with hurt and anger, fear, insecurity. They're wondering, what does my future look like? Many of them wondering, do they have a future at all? Recently, I was speaking at a high school when an 18-year-old student by the name of Michael came up to me following my talk, and he said, "Tom, you're only the second person in my life that's ever told me that I'm worth something." I said, "Come on, dude, that can't be right." And he said, "No, it is. See, every night, my mom and her boyfriend told me that I was worthless and that I would never amount to anything in my life. It got so bad that the minute that I turned 18 years old, I moved out into an apartment, and I'm just trying to go to school now while living in this apartment." And I said, "Well, so how are you paying for it? How are you making ends meet, so to speak?" And he said, "Well, I work 36 hours a week at Subway, and then I go to school and I try to have a girlfriend and just be a normal teenager as well." At that same school, a sophomore girl by the name of Star came up to me and said, "My dad tells me regularly that I'm a failure and that I'll fail at pretty much everything that I attempt to do in my life." This past November, I was speaking at a conference when a 13-year-old middle school girl, this cute little thing, comes up to me and she said, "Last week, my adoptive father told me that adopting me was the biggest mistake that they've ever made. He told me that I'm supposed to have big dreams, but how is a mistake supposed to accomplish their dreams?" 3 stories, 3 students that I've met recently from our region. But these stories, unfortunately, they're not abnormalities, nor are they just confined to our area. These kinds of stories are happening all over the country every single day as students, they walk the hallways of their school, they sit in their lunchrooms, they live in our neighborhoods, and they wonder, what is their future, what is their world going to look like? With stories like these, it's easy to understand why 52% of our middle school and high school students will be bullied in some form by the time they graduate high school, why 1 out of every 8 of them struggles with some sort of depression, has experimented with cutting and other forms of self-injury, and why every 18 seconds in our country, a teenager attempts to take their own life through suicide, every 90 seconds succeeding at the task. Those stories right there are why ResGen exists. We're here to restore a generation of relationships. Now, a question that we get often when I say that statement is, okay, Tom, that sounds really good, but what does that look like? How does that happen? Well, the main mechanism, the main way that happens is through me going into conferences, events, festivals, camps, retreats, those kinds of things, and speaking hope and encouragement into students' lives, letting them know that the brokenness that they have in their life, it can indeed be restored, that their past doesn't have to determine their future, that they really can make something of their life and impact other people's lives as well. One of the greatest ways that we've seen impact, though, is through our public middle school and high school assemblies. There's some brochures on your table that talk about those, but basically what we do is we bring a high energy, a high involvement school assembly to public middle schools and high schools, where we break down what love looks like in a middle school or high school setting. We talk about, how do we offer the same kind of love that every single one of us is looking for in our life, where we don't have to, change who we are based on where we're at or who we're with. During those times, I often travel with hip-hop artists and magicians because they're cooler than me, and they really get the students to listen and so forth. And we just have a great time with students, and we break down love. And we spell it where L stands for link arms, O is others focused, V value relationships, and E evaluate success, utilizing humor and stories and then some hard-hitting truth, really challenging students, hitting them right in between the eyes with some truth that will really challenge them to make the changes in their lives to benefit other people. It's been such a rewarding thing to see how students have responded to those. Afterwards, we leave a curriculum, a 4-week curriculum that I wrote that's based on my talk that teachers can then utilize in their classroom. We meet with students, we meet with teachers, we meet with administration, we encourage them throughout. We offer breakout sessions with at-risk students where we can really talk with them about dealing with the struggles and challenges in their life and making positive changes for their future. When possible and the community is open to it and when the school's open to it, we do an event at night. Where we'll do parent seminars on youth culture, that kind of thing. We'll do community events, and that's where there's a secular side of what I do and then also a faith side. And so when we can, we do the outreach event at night where we bring the community, and that's where I involve faith in what we're talking about. And above all, the greatest thing about this is that we're seeing impact. We're seeing students that are making some positive changes. We were in Brandon a couple of weeks ago, and one of the teachers was giving a test the very next morning, and he put on the test, he said, this is optional, but what did you get out of the assembly and the speaker? And 180 some students decided to answer that question, and what they gave feedback as to how it impacted their life and how that they won't look at things the same way and how they seek to make positive changes in their lives. And so it's been exciting to see how that's all come together. Often there's two questions, and then I'll open it up for questions for you. There's two questions that I get asked a lot, and number one, it's how are you funded, and how does all this happen? And really, because we are a 501c3, the nice thing is that we're not tied to having to charge a certain amount to go into schools. We've been blessed with the opportunity to go. We've been into schools in 24 different states in the last 5 years. We can go based on any budget. We have an idea as to what it would cost to bring it in, but we have about 150 families that are part of supporting Restoration Generation, as well as now we've opened it up and we've seen businesses come alongside us and say, hey, we want to sponsor this school, we want to sponsor this assembly, and then we can give them kudos and advertising and different things like that in the assembly. But and so that's been a great way that we've been able to fund ResGen. The other thing is how do you get bookings? How does this all happen? The crazy thing about this is that we have not done really any marketing. The booklets that you see on your table, that's what we've got. We've got two different websites, one for the faith side and one for the school side, so that the school is very comfortable in what we do, and they don't have to worry about us sharing faith in the public schools and so forth. But everything has happened through word of mouth. And thankfully, a lot of times we've been invited back. Everything we do, whether it be an assembly, a conference, a festival, even in our fundraising end, we do everything with excellence, with integrity and character at the forefront of what we do. And that's thankfully boded very well for us and has led to opportunities to expand what we're doing on a regular basis. So it's been very fun. We speak to about 20,000 plus students a year. Anywhere from 80 to 100 events a year, and we're just along for the ride. And it's been a tremendous opportunity to be able to speak into this future generation of leaders and business owners and what have you. So anyway, with that, I'd love to open it up for questions from you, and I'm sure that there's some that are in your mind that I did not answer already, and kind of fill you in on other things.
All right, Tom, thanks. First, we get a round of applause for Tom, please. Start off.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Nick. You know, as I mentioned, the majority of our open doors have come not from me sending an email, not from me or my assistant making a phone call to a school, but through a local individual that knows about us or that has experienced ResGen connect us to that school or, you know, this event or this festival or what have you. And so we have not been in the Brookings school system as of yet. We do have some good family friends that live in Brookings that have said, man, we really need to try to get you into the Brookings school. And so that would be one way for sure, Nick, that if you have connections, if you have relationships with the school administration, the middle school, high school, that kind of thing, we'd love to connect with you and have you help build a bridge to get into the Brookings school district. And we do elementary schools as well, usually because they're like, hey, we've got elementary school kids too. And so, but I don't do puppets and I don't do balloon animals. Like children's museums are awesome because I can't do any of this creative stuff. But that's a possibility as well. That's a much shorter situation. That isn't a full hour with the hip hop team. We just do about 30 minutes for an elementary school. But so any of those bridge buildings, and then businesses that would say, hey, yeah, we'll sponsor Brookings or we'll sponsor this school in our area, you know, Toronto or whatever. We were in White River, for instance. We were in White River last week on the reservation, and you know, it was businesses that sponsored us to go there. We're in talks with Eagle Butte to go there in the next several weeks. And so all that happens through just bridge building and then businesses that come alongside us to say, yeah, we believe in this generation of students and we want to invest in them in this way. Yeah, there is not a usual schedule. It's a great question. You know, sometimes we'll do a string of things. So if we have one school, one area that says, okay, hey, we want you to bring you in, then we'll try to you know, connect with other schools that are within like an hour's drive and that kind of thing. Because we travel, we're all self-contained. You know, we use all our own sound system, all our own stuff. So we just come in, and so there's some setup, there is some tear down. That's a part of that. And so the other thing is that, so it's kind of based on each specific area and need. Ideally, especially if it's far away, you know, like, so we're looking at you know, Eagle Butte, which is like 6 hours away. So we're saying, okay, that's a long way to go and totally worth it. But I mean, one long way to go. So can we put other things near there? And we try to really balance our schedule. I grew up without a dad. That's one of the stories. I mean, I share my story through the process of the school assembly or the event or whatever. And you know, I mean, I grew up without a dad, him leaving, and then being in prison throughout my middle school, high school, and early part of my college career. And so I'm very careful at not having my kids grow up without a dad as well, even though I'm, you know, still around, but that I'm not, you know, caring for everybody else. I'm not caring for my kids. So we really try to balance all of that as well, and just trust that everything has been in the timing. As we look at how ResGen has come about, it's all been timing and open doors that have just happened, and so we just continue to trust that those doors are going to continue to open up. But so the answer is yes and no. Yep. So there's certain aspects of my school talk, and I have a couple different talks, a couple different curriculums, and that kind of thing. But one thing that we definitely do touch on is on each one of them is there's a pretty significant section that deals with bullying, not just physically, but just through, you know, social media and technology and that kind of thing. Because one thing about this generation as well is that, as they're walking around and looking for love and acceptance, a lot of them are looking, to gain it in the wrong way, or they're also just trying to create some false representation of who they are on any of the number of social media sites. And so we talk about just the impact of social media, how are they, caring for others with their technology as well, and because that's not going away. And bullying's different from when we were growing up. When you left the schoolyard or left the school, you'd go home and it would be done. But now it can follow students home. And so letting them know that still classifies as that, and that we can either speak words of life and be life-giving with our words, or we can deal death, and not just words, but actions, our looks, just what we're sharing with others, that kind of thing. So. Yeah, we definitely look at that and the impact of it. Yeah, and I do this in the middle schools and high schools too, but when I talk about, the first aspect of my talk is on this whole idea of linking arms. And I'd give the example of Red Rover, and I reenact that in a gym, and so it's stupid, but kids like it and it's fun. But anyway, but the whole idea that we're stronger together than when we're on our own. And what the difficult thing with kids and with students is that if they have not had their eyes opened and be exposed to the need that exists, and recognize that, look, they have the same need that you have, and that is for relationship, it will just be an exercise. And so I think that anytime you can involve games, especially like in the elementary school kids. And again, I'm not a children's speaker by any means, but setting up something like that could say, okay, now, so we're going to play this game, and then we're going to talk for 5 minutes as to, hey, what did you notice? So that you tie that learning of the game to the life lesson that can come out of that. We do something dumb with the students in the schools, and again, they love it. But I have them all, clasp hands, lift them up in the air, and then repeat after me. We are teenagers, and we are all in the most awkward stage of our lives. And so, like, we have had schools of, I've spoken schools of up to 2,500 students at one time, and I'm in the middle of the gym, flanked by 2,500 kids. And so to have all these students and say, that's what unifies you, okay? If nothing else unifies you, if the kind of clothing or your interests, or whether you're a band kid or a wrestling kid, or whatever, this is the truth that unifies you. And you get them on the same platform, the same level, saying, this is why we're the same. Okay, regardless of what kind of financial backgrounds we have, no matter what kind of race or religion or belief systems or family makeup or breakdown or whatever, this is what's unifying us. And so as early as we can, and this is why I do elementary schools when they ask me, is because the younger we can start ingraining this in their mind, and more importantly in their heart, then that will follow them through into their middle school and high school career. So I would encourage you to figure out, okay, so how can we get these students to understand that way, that they're on the same playing field, and the reality is that a lot of them, we're selfish human beings. The songs that we listen to, that are in our iPhones and iPods, we listen to a lot of artists that love to sing about themselves and how great they are, and so we internalize that, and so we just are naturally selfish people, where we only care about our social status, we only care about, are our stomachs full, do we have the kind of designer jeans we want, or whatever, and so it's giving them a vision that there are needs that exist, and that they can be used to not only, get a education and better themselves, but they can help meet the needs that are right there in their school as well. Yeah, well, there's a year and a half of fear, and a lot of sleepless nights and sweating, and that. But our process was very interesting, because we knew that we had this call on our lives, and for us being such a somebody who our whole life is based on faith, but recognizing that I really want to go and impact students, specifically in the public sector as well, But we had so many people coming up to me and just encouraging me. And those of you that have started businesses, you know that, I mean, you have this idea and then you share it with people, and then it's these people that surround you. And all of a sudden, I mean, you have this confidence because people have surrounded you. And we had so many people that came alongside us and said, man, you have to do this. Okay, this is what you're gifted at. This is what you need to accomplish. And then all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, people just started coming, you know, and just saying, I had a lawyer friend that said, hey, we'll take care of all your 501c3 paperwork. I'll do that for you, and I won't charge you. And I was like, okay, awesome, because I hate paperwork. And I mean, I'm an upfront speaker guy. You know, we don't like administration. And so he did that. And then we had other people who come and just say, out of the blue, I had a friend come and say, hey, you know what? If you ever get in some sort of a situation where you need to raise support or make donations or whatever, you should come and talk to me first. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. I'll do that. We've had so many just businesses and family friends that believed in us to do that. And then, I mean, it's crazy. We started it with no bookings. I mean, I had no guarantee that anybody was going to even ask me to speak. In the first year, I ended up speaking 98 times the first year. And I said yes to a lot. I mean, I said yes to MOPS groups. I said yes to basically anybody that wanted me to speak because I just wanted to get better at what I do, you know, and just more and more experience and all of that kind of stuff. So, and I still say yes to a lot of things, even if it doesn't, I mean, we try to really hit that target, but there's some things that I just say, you know what, I feel like I should go and do this because there's going to be some good that comes out of it. And so we just trust in that way. Well, I don't know what the size that is, not 5x7, but whatever that size is of that card, I largely use Seif Style Entertainment. They're buddies of mine. They have their own wedding DJ company. They do school dances and all that kind of thing, but they're super good at engaging students. And so they're the hip hop guys that I bring. And then for the night event, then they're part of a larger group called FOG, which is a 4-person hip hop rap group. And so we'll do that. The magicians, the guy that I use most often is a guy out of Missouri that I fly in named Joshua Jordan. And so it just kind of, those are primarily the people that I work with at this point. When I travel, like to any of the other states and I can't get them there, then if there's local people that they know of, then we'll use them. But otherwise, I just go and I just speak on my own. And I used to get all weirded out by that and saying, oh, you know what, I don't know if that's, you know, if that's effective, but it's proven to be effective as well. Especially one time, this guy out in Oregon, do I have time for a quick story? Okay, so I was flown out to Oregon to speak at this school, and it was funny because in the time that we'd booked it like 8 months prior to me going, and in that amount of time, they had an administration change and they got a new principal. Well, the new principal wasn't told that this assembly was going to be happening. And so a week before I was supposed to fly out, the coordinator of the event called me and said, hey, you know what, bad news. I don't know if any students are going to show up because the principal said he knew nothing about it. He's not going to rearrange the schedule, but he can give you 30 minutes in between classes where students can either choose to go to a study hall or hang out. And so do you want to do that? And I said, well, sure, I'm coming all the way there. We were doing a night event as well with a stand-up comedian. And I said, so yeah, I mean, I'm going to be there. Let's do it. So I get there that morning, meet him, and he said, I don't know how many you're going to have. We're a school of 800, but I tried to help you out. And I told them that during this period, there's going to be a full-time comedian that's here to entertain them. And so, and I said, I'm sorry, you did what? And he said, and he goes, so a full-time comedian is going to be here. And I said, oh yeah, no, that guy's tonight. I mean, I'm speaking alongside that guy tonight. And he looks at me and goes, do you say anything funny? You know? And I said, well, I think I'm funny, and my wife thinks I'm funny. My kids don't, but my wife and I do. And he said, okay, well, good luck. And so the first two teen girls come walking in, and they're like, how long have you been doing this? And I said, doing what exactly? They're like, you know, traveling and speaking, and I mean, doing the whole full-time comedy gig. And I'm like, oh, about 10 minutes. And they said, really? And I said, yeah, actually, the comedian's tonight, but I promise you're gonna have a good time, stick around, whatever. And so, anyway, 600 of the 800 students showed up into this old auditorium. It was just crazy. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And it was so fun because these kids, I don't know, mentally, I think they came ready to laugh or something like that. And of course, I mean, I embellished everything. But twice it erupted in laughter and applause, like standing ovations and all this kind of stuff. It was the most bizarre thing ever. And so I called my wife afterwards. I'm like, you'll never guess what happened. I think I just became a full-time comedian. I don't know what happened. So we've actually started like saying that to schools, is that, you know, and making that a point, saying using comedy and all this kind of stuff to ingrain truth and challenge into your students' lives. So all that to say, you know, I like to utilize talent when possible, but if, like the schools in El Paso, you know, I mean, when I fly, it's just harder to travel with talent, you know, it's more expensive. So they get me, and that's worked out pretty good too. We've done lots of incoming freshmen for high school, but it was interesting because when I did 1 Million Cups in Sioux Falls, we had a gal come up and say, hey, what would you think about coming to Augie and doing an incoming freshman thing for Augustana? I've worked with Crew on a number of campuses. In fact, about 6 weeks ago, I was here at SDSU speaking to students there. But we've thought about, you know, what can we do to partner with universities and help that transition go smoother, especially in their decision making, because there's a lot of poor decisions that happen during that freshman year a lot of time, and to help them and encourage them would be a very positive thing. So very open to that conversation with universities and seeing what we can do to help benefit them for sure.
Well, that's it for our show. Have a good day, everyone.